I'm Sophie, 15 years old, allergic to wasps, addicted to sketching random strangers on the bus, and perpetually 5 minutes late to everything. I live in a two-story house with mint green shutters and a doorbell that doesn't work. The neighborhood is one of those places where every lawn looks like it's been trimmed by a small army of perfectionists, and the biggest gossip is usually about whose recycling bin blew into the street. I've got a mom who bakes when she's stressed, which means we have cookies more often than actual dinner, a dad who makes terrible dad jokes like it's a competitive sport, and a big brother, Max, who thinks he's way cooler than he actually is. Max is 17, drives a rusty Civic that smells like gym socks, and somehow manages to get A's without ever cracking a textbook. We have a cat named Taco. Don't ask. Most of my days are a mix of school, art club, texting my best friend Jenna, and trying not to fall asleep during history class. I have exactly 3 pairs of jeans I rotate like a uniform and a sketchbook that's seen more of my emotions than any diary ever could. My room is a chaotic gallery of posters, string lights, and doodles taped to the walls. There's also a tiny cactus on my windowsill that I've named Barry. He's very judgmental. Life was predictable. It was ordinary in that comforting way, like reruns of a favorite show. That's how I liked it. And then one afternoon, Max and I were having one of our usual debates, this one about whether pineapple belongs on pizza. It does, by the way, and out of nowhere, like it slipped right out of his mouth before his brain caught up, he said it. "You're not even really my sister." Time paused. Not dramatically, not like in a movie where everything goes blurry and echoey. More like my brain didn't quite compute the words. I blinked. "What did you just say?" Max looked like he'd just realized he'd stepped off a cliff. "I didn't mean look, just forget it." But I didn't. I couldn't. Because in that moment, something snapped. Or maybe it clicked. A whisper at the edge of everything I'd ever thought I knew. And that's when everything started to change. The silence that followed felt louder than Max's outburst. I stared at him, my slice of pizza forgotten, cheese sagging off the edge like it knew the party was over. He avoided my eyes, busying himself with folding the pizza box like it was a piece of origami with national security implications. "Max," I said, my voice quieter now. "What did you mean by that?" He shrugged. "Nothing. I was just being a jerk." "You don't say stuff like that for nothing." "Soph, seriously, it's not a big deal." "Forget it." But he was fidgeting like he did when he was hiding something. Max only got squirmy when he knew he'd messed up. I stood up and backed away from the table slowly, like the floor might drop out if I moved too fast. "You said I'm not your sister. Why would you say that?" He looked up at me finally, and there was a flicker of panic in his eyes. "I'm sorry, okay? I shouldn't have said it." "That's not an answer." "I can't," he said, running a hand through his hair. "I promised Mom and Dad I wouldn't." There it was. The first real crack. Something inside me dropped, like a roller coaster ride where you didn't know there was a drop. "You promised." I stopped myself. My mouth suddenly felt dry. "Promise them what?" He stood too. "Forget it. Please. Just talk to them, okay? Not me." And then he was gone. Upstairs. Door shut. Music on loud enough to be a very clear "don't knock." I sat back down, the kitchen feeling colder somehow. The pizza was cold too. So I did the only thing I could think to do. I texted Jenna. Max just said I'm not his sister." "Jenna, what?" "Jenna, like adopted?" "Idk. He won't tell me." "Jenna, OMG. Ask your parents." "I'm scared too." "Jenna, Sophie. Go." And maybe it was the 3 dots of her typing something else, or maybe it was the gnawing pit in my stomach, but I stood. And I went. Toward the living room, where Mom was knitting and Dad was pretending to read a novel, but really scrolling through his phone. And I was about to blow up everything. I stood in the doorway of the living room, heart doing gymnastics in my chest. Mom glanced up, needles clicking to a stop mid-row. Dad looked over his reading glasses like he wasn't just caught reading fantasy football rankings. "Everything okay, Soph?" Mom asked. "No. Not even close. I need to talk to you. Both of you." Now, that's a sentence that has never led to anything good in the history of teenagers. It's either a bad grade, a dent in the car, or someone's pregnant on TV. But this time, it was something else entirely. Dad sat up straighter, and Mom set her knitting in her lap. I stayed standing, arms crossed like they could hold in all the questions. "What's going on?" Dad asked. I looked at them, my mouth opening and closing like I was auditioning for a fish impersonation. "Did you adopt me?" I finally blurted out. Mom flinched. Dad's eyes widened. Neither of them said no. For 3 long seconds, the air felt like concrete. "Max told me," I added, just to fill the silence that had already confirmed everything. Mom leaned forward, reaching out. "Sophie, honey." "Don't," I said, stepping back. "Just tell me the truth." Dad sighed. A long, heavy, everything is about to change sigh. "Yes," he said. "You're adopted." I didn't cry. Not then. I just nodded like I was getting instructions on how to fix a bicycle chain. Numb. Confused. Angry, but mostly in that foggy way where the anger hasn't figured out where to land yet. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" Mom's eyes were glassy. "We were going to. We just never found the right time." "I'm 15, I snapped. "You had a lot of time." Dad nodded slowly. "You're right. That's on us." "So? What happened? Why was I adopted? Where am I real?" I stopped myself. Because it hurt to say it like that. Like they weren't my real parents. But also, I needed to know. "We're your real parents," Mom said, as if reading my thoughts. "But yes, you came to us when you were a baby. Do you want the whole story?" I didn't answer. I just sat down. That was answer enough. And so they told me. It wasn't dramatic, no scandal or mystery. My birth mother was young. Too young. She had me, and she knew she couldn't take care of a baby. She chose adoption. Chose them. My parents. The people who taught me to ride a bike, cheered at my school plays, and made pancakes shaped like dinosaurs. They showed me a photo. A letter. My birth mother's name, Lila. No last name given. She wanted it to be a closed adoption, Dad explained. "But she wrote this for you. Just in case." I held the letter with trembling hands, but didn't open it. Not yet. That night, I didn't eat dinner. I didn't text Jenna back. I didn't cry either. I just lay on my bed staring at the ceiling, the letter on my chest like a weight. The world hadn't ended, but it had tilted. Slightly. Just enough to feel like maybe it never was what I thought. And I didn't know what to do next. The letter sat on my desk for 3 days. I moved it twice, once to clean under it, once because it made me feel like it was watching me. Still unopened. Still whispering. Max tried to talk to me once, in the hallway, right outside the bathroom. "I'm sorry," he said. No sarcasm, no usual Maxness. Just those 2 words. I didn't say anything back. I wasn't ready. But I didn't slam the door in his face either, so, progress? At school, everything felt like a bad improv play I'd forgotten my lines for. I couldn't focus. I kept staring at people and wondering what they didn't know about themselves. Like maybe the girl next to me in biology thought her name was Amanda, but really she was born Natasha in Moldova. Or that the janitor was secretly a millionaire with amnesia. At home, I started going through old photo albums. The ones Mom obsessively made before she discovered digital scrapbooking. They were filled with pictures of me first bath, first ice cream cone, first attempt at cutting my own bangs, a crime against hair. Every picture looked the same as they always had. Only now, there was a voice in the back of my mind asking, whose baby is that really? On Friday night, I finally opened the letter. It was short. Handwritten in neat, slanted letters. Dear Sophie, if you're reading this, then you know. First, I want you to know that giving you up was the hardest thing I've ever done. I was 17. Scared. And I wanted more for you than I could give. I picked your parents because I saw something in them, something steady and good. I know they love you. I hope you've had a beautiful life. Please know I've never stopped thinking about you. Love. Lila. That was it. No dramatic backstory. No promises of reunion. Just a gentle door left slightly open. I stared at the letter until the words blurred. Then I read it again. And again. I thought it would make me feel better. Or worse. Something. But mostly it made me feel still. Like a snow globe after the flakes have settled. The next day, I knocked on Max's door. He opened it fast, like he'd been waiting. "I'm not mad anymore," I said. "You should have been." I was. But also, thanks. For messing up. He smiled. "Anytime." We sat on the floor of his room, surrounded by snack wrappers and half-done homework. He told me he'd known since he was 10, and it had scared him, too. "You were my little sister already," he said. I didn't want that to change. "It hasn't," I said. "Good," he said, then grinned. "But if you tell anyone I got sentimental, I'll deny it to my grave." Noted. Things got lighter after that. Still weird. Still wobbly. But lighter. I asked Mom and Dad more questions about how they felt when they brought me home, what I was like as a baby, whether I had any birth siblings out there. They answered everything they could. And what they couldn't, they didn't pretend to know. And I kept drawing. Pages and pages filled with faces, mine, my family's, imagined ones. I was trying to sketch my way to understanding. I don't know if I ever will. But I'm starting to think that's okay. That year, spring came early. The kind of spring when daffodils start to appear, even though you're still wearing sweaters. There was something symbolic about it, as if nature had decided that I needed a soft restart. A few weeks had passed since the discovery, as I began to call it in my mind. It wasn't exactly a before and after situation, but more like a puzzle where I didn't know what was missing, and then suddenly everything fell into place. And the picture? It was the same. Just clearer. One Saturday, I asked my mom if we could go to the park where she used to take me when I was little. The one with the strange turtle-shaped sandbox and creaky swings. She smiled and grabbed her coat. We sat on a bench, drinking cold tea from a small kiosk by the path. I told her that everything was fine. Not great, not bad. Just fine. She squeezed my hand as if it meant everything to her. "I was afraid," she said, "that you would think it meant we weren't your real parents." I shook my head. "It just means my story is bigger than I thought." And that was true. I wasn't replacing one version of my life with another, I was expanding it. Like turning a drawing into a mural. I didn't write to Lila. Not yet. I wasn't even sure what to say to her. But I folded her letter and tucked it into my sketchbook, between the pages of portraits and ink blots. A quiet place where it could be kept until I was ready. Max and I returned to normal life, which for us meant arguing about which Star Wars trilogy was better and sabotaging each other's serial choices. He started letting me sit in the front seat again. Such is brotherly love. One evening, Dad and I were sitting in the garage. He was working on a shelf that had no clear purpose, and I was drawing on pieces of wood. "Everything okay, kid?" he asked. "Yeah, I guess so." He nodded. "Good. Because you're stuck with us." "Yeah, well," I smiled, "it could be worse." He threw a piece of wood at me. I threw a pencil at him. We're not the hugging type, but we don't need to be. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that this wasn't the end. It was the middle. A strange, emotional, paint-splattered middle. I still had school. I still had Jenna. I still had Barry the cactus, silently judging me. And I still had my family. The one that chose me. The one I chose in return. It turns out you can be two things at once. Accepted and loved. Surprised and steadfast. A little lost and yet completely found. And me? I'm still Sophie. Just with a new chapter in my sketchbook. And maybe that's the best turn of events there could be. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, please subscribe to this channel. Thank you.